Hey, everybody, welcome. It's Thursday, June 22nd, 2023. The first half of this year is almost over. Yesterday, the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the sun was up. Buddy, did you get out to the beach or anything yesterday to check out the day?
No, it was kind of cloudy and, it's been raining this week here. So no, was there all weekend, but did not go yesterday.
Wilmington, North Carolina is where Buddy Blake is. I'm out on the Oregon coast and it is actually beautiful out here. And today we're joined by someone in the center of the country, Mr. Joe Heath. Joe, I would love for you to introduce yourself just a little bit and tell us about your business. But first, I do want to say, as we do, we're going to start with a poll. Today's webinar is about optimizing your SEO and scoring more organic leads. And so today's first poll, if you're watching us live, please participate and tell us, when was the last time you generated an organic lead from your real estate website? Was it today? Was it this week? Was it this month? Or was it what's an organic lead? Is that something I can get at Whole Foods? All right, Joe, tell us about yourself and why you're here.
Yeah, so my name is Joe Heath. My business is real estate web creation. As Robert said, I am based in Chicago, Illinois. I've been doing website development work, content marketing and content strategy and SEO for about 12 years now. I got started in the business by doing work for a local realtor here in Chicago as kind of like a side gig, doing work like pretty sporadically and pretty infrequently, but over time, he started to have me do a little bit more and do a little bit more. And eventually he started to give my name to other agents that, he would meet at conferences or other agents that were in his network. And I would start doing work on their websites and they would do the same thing. They would refer me out to agents in their network or agents that they would meet at conferences they would attend. And it eventually grew into me just doing this full time. This started probably around like 2008, 2009. But again, I've been doing it full time since, I guess for about 12 years now.
Excellent. Well, I'm really glad you're here. Buddy, checking in with you. You were gone a couple of weeks ago, our last webinar. How's everything going for you?
Good. Just kind of in the swing of summer, market shifting around some. Definitely the velocity and the pace has slowed substantially. For a whole lot of factors. It's about as wonky a market as I've ever seen in my life. It's just anybody says they've seen this before, they're crazy, because this is a different world than we've seen before. So
it's interesting because, Joe, you mentioned you got into this industry in 2008, 2009. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an interesting time to be getting into real estate generally. Buddy, kind of speaking to your point about some people saying they've seen this before. What was that like at that time versus now?
Well, when the agent that I was doing work for was Ted. We were talking about him earlier, Ted Guinero here in Chicago. I was still pretty green. I was just out of college. So I didn't really get wrapped up into kind of what the market conditions were like at that time. I was more concerned with kind of what he wanted to have done on the website. Mm-hmm. But yeah, obviously given the time and given the crash, it was kind of an interesting time to jump into this. But, I guess what I would say is, I don't know. That's a good question.
It's different. And different now, Buddy, than it was back then. I know you were real estate before, you were real estate after.
Well, I think the biggest difference is whenever you see a slowdown in units, usually you see a price deflation and an inventory increase, and those things really aren't happening at a rapid pace. Some places, things are shifting around faster than others, but inventory is still ridiculously low in many parts of the country, even though the unit count is significantly down as far as number of transactions.
Hey, let's do this. Let's go to our poll results. Poll number 1. When was the last time you generated an organic lead? 32% of you today. 16% this past week, 26% this past month. And 20 is 26%, and 26% of you, what's an organic lead?
Ooh.
All right. Well, that's really fun to see. And those results are interesting. They're not what I expected, and glad to see it. Hey, and real quick, before we kind of keep going, if you are watching live and you've got a question or a comment you want to make, even tell us where you are, just pop that into the chat. Hey, David from Sarasota, Florida. Hello, Jeff from Newport Beach, California, down the 101. For me, it's going to be a little bit of a drive, but you'll get there. And we'd love for you to be able to jump in. We'll answer as many of your questions as we can throughout the webinar. Serge from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, just east of Banff and the Rockies of Canada. All right, let's jump in and say, we're talking about SEO, search engine optimization, for you acronym challenged folks. It's an acronym that gets thrown around a lot among real estate professionals, I think, SEO. And I'm curious, and I'll start with you, Joe. How would you define SEO? And let's do it like this. Define it in one word. Define it in one sentence. And we know it's search engine optimization, but some other way of defining it. One word, one sentence.
Yeah, I think defining it in one word is challenging. I think you can describe it in one word. And one word that comes to mind for me is beneficial. I think if you talk to anybody who's invested in SEO, and has seen a little bit of success with it, they'll all tell you that they've benefited from it, and probably continue to benefit from it. Mm-hmm. In one sentence, I think you could probably say that SEO is a long-term marketing strategy that has the potential to provide a strong return on investment, but it's going to take some time, persistence. And I know there's probably some people out there who are going to roll their eyes and say, it's another SEO guy talking about, how long it takes to see results. But I think what a lot of people have to understand is that Google is very much interested in their user experience. And if search results were constantly turning over, or if crappy websites were constantly making their way up to the top of search rankings, we'd all probably use Google a lot less frequently. So in the beginning, it is going to take some time, and the results are going to be gradual. But I think given how much we use Google for whatever it is we're searching, not just real estate, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, right? So, just always keep that in mind if you're just starting out and don't know a lot about SEO, that it is going to take some time.
Buddy, and everybody can find your website at buddyblake.com. I'm curious, you've been in real estate for a minute, even many minutes at this point. And you've been somebody as a real estate professional interested, and you've focused on SEO over the course of years. I'm curious for you, how would you define or describe SEO in one word and then in one sentence?
I think it's a more intentional customer. I think that they are, I think it's just content driven, and we've not done a good job. We switched our architecture. We went from from a Premier to a different site with you guys, and that has changed things because, our indexing all changed and everything else. So I haven't been focusing on it like I should, but we went through the first 2 years we had our Sierra site. We spent a lot of time and a lot of money. And it made a huge difference for us. And, now we've got to kind of recommit on that. But I can tell you this, that, Google Organic is going to be, for us, it's always been, when we see one of those, that's a higher intent lead for us. If it's a seller, buyer, the next level down would be some of the PPC stuff. And then at the very bottom end is going to be your social media stuff. That's kind of that's the new clickbait to some degree. But I think that, I think you have to go at it as just like when you're walking in a house and getting a house ready, if you're a builder or a seller, you got to look at it with the buyer vision on. What is that person doing? Well, if I'm searching for something, I am built to ignore, and just in my mind, not everybody's this way, to ignore the ads at the top. So I'll typically scroll down and start looking for because my impression is, and I think Joe would know better than me, my impression is a lot of consumers think that the ones that rank higher organically are probably the more real ones and the more professional ones and things like that versus somebody just bought their way to the top. Would that be accurate, Joe?
Yes and no. I mean, I think there is some level of trust that people have if they see a website that is populating at the top of search results. But I think if you found your way there, it's because you've established that trust and you've done the work to earn that ranking. So, does every website that is ranking at the top of search results deserve to be there? Not necessarily. Especially if you're looking at, kind of some of the niche search categories that you might be ranking for that don't have as much competition. But you're right when you say that, there is a trust level there. And whether that's real or whether it's not, the websites that rank high are going to have an established trust level, both from search engines and users.
Yeah, let's get to here in a few moments what the experience is going to be like for a lead on a site that's focused on SEO. I want to say hi to
Robert. Trey has a really good question.
Yeah, let's look at some questions, and that is so Ted Guarnero, our friend who lives in Florida now, used to live in Chicago area, talking about the differences between 2007, 2008, and today, 2023. He says it was definitely easier to rank on page 1 when Joe and myself started. That is you, Joe Heath. Jeff says, I am new to Sierra. I was with Follow Up Boss for 5 years. Welcome, Jeff. Larry says, hello, Larry Morgan from Wilmington, North Carolina. I think you know where that is, buddy. Hello, Larry. Scott Hack, our friend Scott in Louisville, Kentucky is here. Now, Trey asks, he says, buddy, what forced registration factors do you recommend to get enough leads, but also quality? You wanted to answer that one.
I've been all over the board on that. And it kind of goes with, I guess I'm moody in the sense. Right now, we've pulled back a lot of forced registration other than stuff we're spending money on like PPC and things like that. Now, our lead volume goes down, but our bounce rate was just pretty high. And not only that, but just I had a few people, clients and things like that, and people I know say, gosh, I hate going to your website and just going there and, having to give my information every time. Well, so we pulled back on that, and we don't have a shortage of leads right now. We have plenty of leads with everything that we're doing. We got plenty of leads in our database. So right now we're more focused on intent level and the likelihood of somebody doing something versus just a whole mass of leads. Because if we're not calling it all the leads already, if we're not engaging with them and following up with them, what's the use of just continually just piling them in there if you're not going to do something with them?
Yeah, I wish everybody had that mentality because, a lot of the problems that I face with certain clients is they want more leads. All they're concerned about is more leads, more leads, more leads. And a lot of times you're right. If you have the traffic and you already have a strong database, a lot of times more leads isn't the answer. I think focusing on conversion is where you might have success, especially in this market where buyers are out there, but maybe they're not ready because of higher interest rates, or maybe they're kind of ready, but they don't really are. Maybe their lease doesn't end for 6 months or 8 months or 9 months. So I think that's a really, really good point. But I think when it comes to forced registration, you're right. If you force registration right off the bat, you're going to see a higher lead volume every single time. That's just the way it is. And that's why it's probably recommended for paid ads. Because if you're paying for that traffic and you're paying for those leads through pay-per-click, you might as well maximize and you might as well maximize return on that and get something out of it.
Yeah, and I've got mine set on suggested for anything that's not paid. Right now, we've got our set for suggested.
Yeah.
For those of you who are following along who are Sierra Interactive clients, we're talking about the different forced or not registration requirements or not, suggest, et cetera, various options available. And you can delineate between those leads who are paid traffic and those leads who are not on your site, and set different settings for each. We've got an anonymous attendee who asked, and we'll come back to this, anonymous. I know this name. Is AI content a good option, or will that make you drop in ranking? How do you get backlinks? Are no follow links worth it? And for Joe, what is your website? I'm not sure we'll get too deep into no follow links and backlinks, maybe some with site architecture, but let's just say this for anybody who's wanting to find you on Google, DuckDuckGo, Bing, or their Opera, their search engine of choice, Joe, where can people find your website? We'll just say it now.
Oh, it's just realestatewebcreation.com.
Realestatewebcreation.com. All right, Joe, in your opinion, is a focus on SEO, is it required for real estate professionals in 2023? Is it required?
No. I think if if you're really good at social media, or if you've got really strong networking skills and you get out in the community, you can certainly build a business doing those things and not focusing on SEO. In fact, some of the top producers here in Chicago, year in and year out, really don't do much with websites at all. But I think there are advantages to investing in SEO. One being, if you've invested in SEO and you're at a point to where your website's driving traffic organically, that website can do work for you. It can do the lead generation work when you're not working. If you're sleeping or if you're on vacation and you're ranking well, leads are going to continue to pile in. So that's certainly one advantage in SEO that you're not going to get with other marketing strategies. And I guess I would say another would be, I hear Tony Gilbert talk about this a lot with Hypewired. If you've built a website that has a great ranking and it's driving a ton of traffic and it's driving a ton of organic leads, that's pretty valuable. And it gives you options as a business owner. So if you get to a point to where you're tired of running around and you don't want to go out with clients as much anymore, or you want to retire or you want to exit the business, you've got something that you can sell, or you can possibly manage from behind the scenes, and you don't have to do quite as much. So I think those advantages definitely make SEO attractive to a lot of people who are looking at kind of what marketing strategy to use for their business. But to go back to the original question, no, I don't think it's required, but again, I think it does have some advantages.
It's interesting you name checked Tony Gilbert on that point around essentially. I've heard Patrick Ferry say the same thing, which is essentially that if you do focus on SEO with your website, you have now you've created an asset, something that is sellable later on down the road. And sometimes we were just talking about a situation prior to coming on air, if you will, about we know a situation like it actually does happen, right? People can do that. It is an asset that they can sell. Okay, let's go to as we keep going. I want to ask this question, poll number 2. Let's go with poll number 2, and that is, because we're going to be talking about this a little bit, how many content pages and or blog posts have you added to your real estate website so far this year? One answer, you have added 0. You have added 1 to 10, 11 to 25, 26 to 50. You are 51 and climbing. 51 and climbing in terms of the number of content pages and blog posts you've added to your real estate website so far this year. All right, we'll come back to those poll results in a moment. I'll come back to this because I think we struck a chord around registration requirements. And this is a mastermind. So we have different opinions. We have different, we're honing each other here. So I'm going to go to you, buddy, and ask you this question from Helen. I'll just ask you, buddy, when you setting your settings at buddyblake.com and you've got your paid traffic and your non-paid traffic, tell us explicitly, do you force registration first view of a property detail page for paid traffic?
Yes, 0. Yeah, we've got it set to 0 on paid. Right,
and that's the suggestion that we as Sierra as a company recommend as well. What about for organic traffic? Because you do get organic traffic. What do you do there?
Well, we do that, and just also with a lot of the marketing we do, billboards, radio, and stuff like that, we drive to buddyblake.com. So you got to factor direct traffic in too. That. So we bounce between, right now we've had it set for suggested, which is pretty much, it pops up on the very first one and they can clear it without having to enter anything. Or we'll go around 2 or 3 and force it sometimes, depending on how our lead flow is, how many agents I've got on rotation and things like that. I mean, what you don't need is, I've learned over the years that you can overwhelm agents and have too many leads and then they'll focus on none. And so you've got to throttle that according to how many people's in the rotation. Right. If that makes sense. It's just from my experience as running a team. I don't know the technical end of it, Joe's going to know that a lot better than me. I don't know the answer, the right answer on that, but for us, that's what we do.
What do you
Well,
recommend?
I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. I mean, I think if you have the luxury of getting traffic and you have the luxury of being able to play around with it, you're in a good spot. But if you're somebody who really is trying to maximize lead generation, there's a reason you guys, Robert, suggest forced registration with paid ads, because it does result in maximizing lead generation. And I think the same can be said for organic as well, or direct traffic, or any traffic at all. So I think if you are a website that you're ranking super high and you're getting a ton of organic traffic and you're not necessarily concerned about leads, you do have the luxury of kind of testing different different settings. But not everyone's in that position either.
Right. And let's come back to that a little bit when we talk about site experience for leads who are on your site. Scott says, Joe, part of my strategy for my business involves online lead generation, SEO, et cetera, and I'm not, all caps, not quiet about it. So I tend to have conversations with other agents, brokers, and team leaders about it. One question I get a lot from people is how can they compete with someone who started building their web presence 10 to 15 or even longer ago, as the years? What should a brand new site owner be concentrating on? It's a good question. Let's come back to that because I think Scott will get to that question. What is it that you're going to do if you're just starting out? Because you spoke to that already a little bit, Joe, and alluded to it. It's going to take some time. Is there a quick, is there some kind of secret password to be able to turn a key and be ranking page 1 on Google? David says that he has created almost 3,000 pages on his new site and still going so far this year. All right, we'll come back to the poll in a moment. Let's talk about site architecture and navigation. I mean, so just even those words, I mean, this is maybe the nerdiest topic that we have done since we started doing these in April, is SEO. And when I say site navigation and when I say, or site architecture navigation, some of you are going to be thinking, maybe the 26% of you that said, what's an organic lead? You're going to be thinking you're going to need a permit to do this, right? Where's the contractor? So I am curious, Joe, what is site architecture, site navigation? What is it and why does it matter?
So I think it's, at this point, I think it's, common knowledge that, any successful real estate strategy is going to involve maximizing visibility in search results, leveraging IDX data, and creating all these different landing pages for all the various segments in your market. But I think what's getting lost in agents or website owners doing this is paying attention to how your site is organized. Like, how are these pages being displayed on your website? How can users get to different sections on your website? And I think that's a real issue, especially in today's market where inventory is low, right? Because I'll put it this way: if you're just starting out and you're only getting started with SEO, a lot of your early successes are going to be for like niche search categories. Home buyers searching architectural styles, or home buyers searching homes with certain features, or neighborhoods that might have unique characteristics. And what's happening is you might get that traffic, but if I'm a user and I land on a page and I don't see any active listings, or maybe I only see 1 or 2 listings, and those listings don't match what I need as a buyer, at that point, it is 100% up to your website's user experience that is going to determine whether you capture me as a lead or you lose me forever. So if I don't see another way to click over to something that's related to whatever page that I'm on pretty much immediately after I see there's no listings available, or if I find that your website is easy to navigate and easy to use and it's providing a good user experience, you're going to maximize lead generation. And that's also going to help your SEO. So, I think, again, like, that's something that is getting lost in mass page creation. And don't get me wrong, like that's super helpful. But if you're not thinking about how all of these pages are going to be organized collectively, you're going to be doing yourself a disservice, and you're only going to be hurting not only your SEO, but also your lead generation.
That's interesting, and I kind of want to poke a little bit deeper on that is when we talk about, say, action plans and lead communications, automations, et cetera, you want to think about, you want to have some empathy and put yourself in the shoes of the person on the other side of the screen, when they receive it. Well, how does this come across? And what I'm hearing you say is that when you're setting up your website, you should be doing the same thing. You should be thinking about the person who's working through that website. What are they going to want to find next, and where will they go?
Oh yeah, 1,000% right. It's something I'm spending a lot of time on now. And like, if you haven't gotten it right, or maybe your website is getting a lot of traffic, and you've been at the SEO game for a while, but if you feel like maybe your lead generation isn't there despite all that traffic, taking a look at how everything is organized and structured is probably something I would look at first and evaluate and determine, like, how can we make this better? Like, what is it that we're not doing right, and getting users to listings that they want to see and will ultimately register because they want to see more of.
So what's the best way, Joe, to leverage IDX data? I mean, we're talking about real estate specifically here. You've got a feed of properties. What's the best way that somebody who's got a real estate website can leverage that data?
Well, you still want to be comprehensive, right? Like, I'm not saying that, just because things can get messy or you're creating thousands of pages that you shouldn't use that to your advantage. So I would still say be comprehensive. Just because a page that you create for homes that have, 2 master suites doesn't get a ton of traffic, it might still get a user here and there. And if you start to multiply that and you get a user from this page and user from that page, like, that all starts to add up. So I would definitely be deliberate and still be comprehensive in your efforts. But again, just make sure that you're thinking about how everything is going to be organized to a way that maximizes lead generation. And one of the things I like about Sierra websites is you guys have done such a good job in installing tools and features that allow users to implement like a positive user experience, whether that's creating custom sidebars for each individual page section, or installing content labels and adding related links within the content, or using the fallback radius, which populates listings that are nearby if active listings aren't available for whatever page you've applied that search to. Taking advantage of all of those features that are on Sierra websites is something I highly recommend if you're just getting started with your website.
Yes, and thank you for that. And I do want to give a shout out to Tony Gilbert, especially for that fallback radius. He helped us, really conceptualize what that would look like. We lean on y'all. I'll say that. For those of you who are experts in what you do, we definitely lean on y'all as we continue to build and iterate this product. Let's go to a couple questions, then we'll go to a poll. David gave his website for those of you who are watching live and all the pages he's building. Our friend Trey gives a feature suggestion. He says, I would love to see Sierra use AI to rewrite listing descriptions so our websites would read differently than the millions of websites displaying listings with the same text. An interesting idea. And I will say that if you have a Sierra Interactive website, you can actually use a custom field on the property detail pages with merge fields, which is not Sierra. It's not an AI. It's not Bard or ChatGPT. We'll come back to those here in a moment, but you can certainly make your site different and distinct in that way. Let's go to the poll results. Poll number 2, content and blog posts. How many content pages and or blog posts have you added to your website so far this year? 31% of you say 0. 27%, 10, 1 to 10. 23% of you, 11 to 25 content pages and blog posts. 12% of you, 26 to 50, and 8% of you have added 51 or more content pages, blog posts. So that's pretty varied. Buddy, you mentioned that you've gotten out a little bit from focusing on content on your page, but you're ready to recommit. I'm curious. I mean, buddy, you're a blogger. Have blogs.
I was until I guess March or April of this year when I kind of transitioned and I got out of just been busy.
But you've got interesting stuff to say. And I'll say that with blogging, I mean, it was big in like 2006, right? I mean, blogging was big. You got some of you might still have like a Blogspot account somewhere out there with your
Yep.
surfer
But I think
guy,
the thing,
84 at yahoo.com. What is it still matter? Does it still matter now?
I think I don't know that it matters SEO. Why I don't know the answer to that, but I do know this. I know it matters for the freshness of your site, because when I go, my site has become the sites that I used to kind of like, ugh, they got a site, there's been nothing new in the last 4 or 5 months. Well, that tells me they're not paying attention to things. Like, I'll give you an example. When I went to buy my last vehicle years ago, when I bought a boat, I would get online and search everything. So it's not just, hey, I got somebody to stumble across my site. You got to have the content there so that somebody perceives you as professional. Like my site, I tend to create my site for the first audience is a listing opportunity. And oh, by the way, we got houses too. And the houses are how you draw people in with the IDX and all that. But that's where I drive all my marketing to. So I think you really got to decide what you want your website to be the vehicle for. If you're just wanting to get buyer leads, that's a whole different conversation. If you're wanting to get others, but when I will tell you this, I had more engagement and more interaction and more people commenting offline and online when I was consistently doing every single week. I was doing a video. I would simply take the transcript. This is before ChatGPT, and I would roll it right in there, and it became my content. And it was because I'm lazy and don't like to type. That was my easy way to do it. And I didn't care if it was grammatically correct, because that's just who I am. And that really resonated. Now, whether or not that gave me more Google juice, I don't know. But I will tell you, I had offline and real customer engagement on that. And I do think customers pay attention to whether your site is fresh or not.
Yeah, you sound a little bit like me when I talk about how great I used to feel when I ate so healthy. So you realize, you think this was important, and it led to real interactions, which is a really interesting point, buddy. Because it's not just an algorithm, right? It's like the actual feedback and interplay that you're getting with real life site visitors when you're updating fresh content.
Well, if 2% of the people that come to your website have an intent to really do something, you want to make sure that your site is memorable, and they're like, okay, that person's got their mess together. So it's not just attracting them to land on your website. It's coming back, and it's spending time, and it's engaging. And do they find it interesting? Do they find you knowledgeable?
So Brady in Florida says blogs matter a lot, and he puts it in all caps. I'm curious, Joe, do blogs still matter?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Brady for sure. But I think you also have to be deliberate in your strategy. I don't necessarily think it's about frequency of post or just trying to stay relevant by posting content that doesn't have high quality. I think if you're going to actually use your blog to your advantage, you need to focus on quality over quantity right now. So, you might use a blog for, or I guess like an SEO agency who specializes in backlinking and offsite SEO. Like, they're probably going to want to use your blog to post a really high quality article that they can use to potentially acquire backlinks and improve your backlink profile. What I use the blog for a lot of the websites that I do work on is to potentially drive relevant recurring traffic long after that blog is published, like much the same way I do with landing pages. Landing pages on a website are typically optimized for what home buyers are searching, condos, townhomes, historic homes, gated homes, the list goes on. But what I like to do for the blog is try to optimize content for the where. So add content that talks about like where home buyers should search historic homes, or where home buyers should start searching waterfront condos. Because if your website doesn't have like the authority to rank well for just historic homes in your city, you might actually start to rank well a little bit sooner for neighborhoods in your city that have historic homes. And if you've got a well-crafted blog that funnels users to those neighborhood pages, or you've got a call to action that funnels users to your historic homes page, you might still be able to capture traffic and leads for home buyers searching historic homes, even though you just don't rank for only historic homes in your city. So I think if you have a well laid out, thought out strategy for your blog, you can absolutely use it to your advantage. And I think if you're not, you're probably missing out on some additional traffic opportunities.
So let's go a little bit deeper there. And Buddy, I want to come back to you. If somebody today, and this kind of relates to Scott's point about getting started. Buddy, if somebody wants today to start writing blog posts or just fresh content on their site, where should they start? Joe's already spoken a little bit to it about the what, like what should you focus on, but what content, who should be writing it? How, do you have anything about frequency, et cetera?
I don't know about frequency, but I know that consistency, whether that's every week or whether 2 weeks or some consistency makes sense. But
some discipline, okay.
Yeah, but I think that, as far as what to write and kind of what to do, I've always found that, selling is stories and it's experiences. And if you just go through your day and you write down a few of the experiences and questions you've had in our business, we think that everybody knows these. We think everybody understands the lingo we use. We think everybody understands, what this means. Well, deliver your content, in my opinion, around the stories and what's going on in real time, the problems you're seeing, the questions people are asking, the things like Joe said, what they're searching for. And, I like short stuff because I consume things shortly. If it's a super long anything, I've already checked out. It's got to grab my attention at the beginning of it. But I think what you go through and how you solve problems for people, because that's what we get paid to do, is, mostly solving problems. Used to be a lot of the marketing side, but a lot of it's kind of done through aggregation now. But I think that solving problems and helping people get to what they want to get to. And I think that we have all of those situations right in our hands. We just got to break it up into content chunks so that this can be delivered.
Okay. So this is an interesting point because for those of you who have ever watched Seinfeld, you may remember when Kramer sells his life story to Peterman, right? So now Peterman owns all his stories and it's just a funny thing. But Buddy, ChatGPT is not Buddy Blake. Only Buddy has got your experiences and stories to share.
Right.
So would you recommend that somebody take a look at some AI tools like a Bard or ChatGPT to help add content quickly?
I mean, I don't know. I've read stuff where it penalizes you. I don't know the answer to any of this. I'm not smart enough, but I will use ChatGPT to get kind of a proof to start, like for listing content, sometimes for email content, drip camp, whatever. But, when it comes to, and I like to use it when I'm transcribing YouTube, when I'm taking a video and breaking it down. But I think you still have to tell it from your voice and who you are. So you match up when somebody talks to you or sees you in real life or engages with you, that meshes. It's kind of like, if don't have your high school photo on there if you're 57 years old like me. Make sure that the same person exists content-wise, vocabulary-wise, and visually.
I've never seen an out-of-date photo in this industry, never. And I say this as somebody who my photo right now I think is going on about 10 years old. All right. What about you, Joe?
I think that's a good point, my buddy, though. Yeah. I think right now a lot of AI content does sound, or it can sound a little bit robotic. But one of the problems that I see with it is that, by default, it's scanning content and information that's already been published. So, if it's grabbing information that's already on high-ranking websites and you're just pretty much using just that information, you're not adding anything unique to it. You're not adding your own little twist to it. So you're going to have a hard time getting that content to outrank whatever content AI is getting its information from. And I think also, some of the blogs that I've had the most success with are from topics that haven't been really written about at all. So if you're in a market and you think of a good idea, like let's just say you want to write about neighborhoods with historic homes in your city, do a quick search. If there isn't any active content or blogs that are published about that, there's really going to be nothing for AI to scrape and write for you anyway. And that's a good thing. So it's going to require you to kind of use your skill set, your research skills, your knowledge of the market, to write your own information. And those are the kinds of blogs, and that's the kind of content that is going to be better for, not only your SEO, but, organic traffic, lead generation, like everything. So I think that's really my primary issue with only using AI for content purposes, is I think you're missing the boat on what content isn't already out there.
Right. That's a good point. Buddy, you have something to add?
No, I was just going to say, he was talking about the content,
Yeah.
My overall most watched and most engaged and most memorable blog I ever did had something to do with something nobody ever talks about.
Right.
But we're in the hurricane zone, and everybody always, one of the things you do, and I did a video, and then I wrote this article long before Chat GPT. It was about how and why you fill up your bathtub when a hurricane is approaching, because so many people get it wrong, where you pour the water in the toilet. So I literally did it, and you wouldn't believe the responses I got from that. It was unbelievable. And I had no idea that people didn't know how to properly do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the stupidest thing, how to be able to flush your toilet when the power's out.
And
Right.
that kind of stuff can really have a real ability to drive or like backlinks organically too. So yeah, like the more you can do unique content that you might find your database thinks is relevant, that's what I encourage everyone to do when it comes to blogging and content strategy.
Yeah. Okay. So just we're masterminding. So like we're talking about using your own voice, your own stories, thinking about things that are relevant to your area, looking for content that hasn't been addressed in a way that you can address it on your site. There's a lot here, and also a discipline. It doesn't necessarily, it's not like Instagram where you've got to get your reel up, one a day in order to start hitting the algorithm. Neither one of these folks are saying, yeah, there's some, great thing about how, every day or whatever, but Buddy did recommend a consistency. So maybe that's a self-discipline of once every week or once every 2 weeks. I know, Buddy, for a long time, you had the Monday morning coffee.
I did. And I can tell you what isn't working. Once every 4 months is not working. So
Right.
That's where I'm at right now. So that is not working.
Yeah. Right. Once every 4 months going on a jog, you might pop an Achilles, but if you do it a few times a week, you'll build up. All right, let's go to our third poll. Our third poll, which is, what prevents you from focusing on SEO? And in this one, you get to choose as many as you want, but don't choose all of them because they're going to be contradictory. First one is the time it takes, the money I'd spend, time, money. Nothing, I'm already focused on SEO. Nothing, I'm about to start focus on SEO. I'm about to focus on it. And then lastly, the option of, I just don't know where to start. I don't know. Hopefully this webinar is helping you. This mastermind is helping you on that last one for sure. And maybe even motivating you to start focusing on it. All right. So thinking, Joe,
Can I jump in there for a second?
I'm ready for you, buddy.
I want to tell you the best I've ever done with SEO content, and you're going to like this, Joe. We just met here. Truthfully, is when I let a professional handle it. Is when I hired somebody that understands it, because it changes so often, and and I know that's where I need to go again. I need to get somebody who knows what they're doing with it versus me just putting some stuff up, because they can take the content that I can originally create, because I know my business. They don't know me and my business necessarily, but someone like Joe can take what I do and make sure it's structured and properly put together. And I can tell you, when I did that for 2 years, it wasn't cheap, but it had such a long tail investment. And it just really just carried me for a long time. And now I'm at it again because we changed a lot with our website where, we have to redo it again a little bit. But I'm just saying, I mean, if you got the bandwidth and the money and you're really looking how to grow your business, I think a reasonable investment on a regular basis consistently, I think that will go a long way, unless you've got the time and the bandwidth to learn it all yourself. And there was a time when I could do that at a decent degree, but that time is long past now with the technology things, with all the different things hitting us now.
Yeah, I think, SEO, at least when you're doing like on-site work and you're, building out pages or you're writing content, like these aren't necessarily things that are super hard, but I think what a lot of real estate agents have to weigh is that where my time is best spent?
Mhm.
And if you don't want to sit behind your computer all day writing content and you're better used out, showing houses and actually selling homes, then, outsourcing that to somebody like me is probably in your best interest. But, if you're not busy, and you're kind of just building a business and you don't have the resources to hire somebody, I don't think there's anything wrong with at least starting off yourself and, hopefully getting to a point to where you are starting to drive a little bit more traffic, but, maybe, hey, like now that I'm getting that traffic, let me just kind of push this off to somebody else and I can do what I do best, which is selling real estate.
I did hear that one time from another real estate or a SEO professional who specializes in real estate, who said you either are going to spend a lot of time or a lot of money to really do it right. If you shortcut either one, it's probably not going to have the long-term benefits that you're looking for. And so that is one of the things.
Here's the other problem. If you're spending all that time over there, here's where I get lost in the weeds. If I'm spending all my time over there doing all of that, I'm not doing what makes me money. And what makes me money is talking to buyers and sellers and or agents. That's it. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my world focuses. Okay. Because if I'm doing all this over here, I'm not going to do this, because none of us like to do. You've heard me talk about prospecting and talking on the phone, but those are the things that we get paid high dollars to do, the things that other people don't want to do.
Mm-hmm. Now, so a couple things here, and we've got, and I really love this. So if you are watching live and something just bothered you, feel free to jump in. David says 100% go with a pro. And our friend Gerard in Canada says, if you can't spend an hour on site a day, why should anyone else? Just my thought. So thinking about, again, where, if you want to be focused on ranking organically, generating organic leads, there are some questions here. I mean, even back to this poll in terms of what can prohibit you. Is it the time? Is it the money? Is it not knowing where to start, et cetera? And these are really things to weigh. I mean, for you, buddy, as somebody who shines just in terms of helping people and talking with people, that's where you're going to want to spend your time. But there is, at least at different times in your career, buddy, you have thought it best to spend your time doing a video, spending some time on making a transcription made, sharing a story, providing value on your site. That they are not mutually exclusive, are they?
They're not mutually exclusive, but where it's easy to do, and I can, from a real estate agent perspective, it's real easy to vacillate and go over to do what you really like doing. I like tinkering websites and marketing.
Yeah.
Don't love doing the other part. But the other part, if I don't do the other part, all of the stuff I'm tinkering and marketing ain't going to do any good. So I'm moving back to a world where I'm hiring professionals in every element, where I was trying to do it yourself on everything. So I'm moving back to a world where I'm hiring professionals on across the board.
So let's go to that. Let's ask this question. And we've kind of touched on this a few different times, but Joe, when you're thinking beyond like rankings and generating organic leads, let's put kind of our empathy hat on. How does a focus on SEO optimize a site visitor's experience on your site? And why does that matter? That they have a good or some kind of experience that you want for them to have?
Well, because if you're investing in SEO, what you're essentially doing is you're trying to create an optimal user experience for that lead. And the traffic that any website gets isn't necessarily always going to come from organic search results. It might be direct traffic, it might be from social media, it might be from handing out a business card to somebody you met at a party. So if you're investing in SEO, you're trying to build a better brand for yourself and you're trying to build a better website. And, SEO is definitely going to impact that directly. Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess I think that's probably the best way to answer that question. Obviously SEO is all about driving organic traffic and that's the end game. But as a result of SEO, you're definitely starting to build a better brand online and build a better digital presence.
It's interesting. All right. Hey, let's do results of this poll number 3. What prevents you from focusing on SEO? So 36% of you said the time it takes. 18% of you said the money I'd spend. None of you said that you're about to focus on SEO. 41% of you said, I don't know where to start. And about a third of you, 32%, said nothing. I'm already focused on it. Okay, let's talk about this. And this goes back to some previous questions as well. Buddy, what would you say in this kind of market? And we talked about low inventory, et cetera, something you've never seen before. When it comes to your real estate website, maybe you'll talk to yourself here for a little bit too. Where do you counsel real estate professionals to spend their time and or money on your site, on your website?
On the physical front end of the site?
Yes.
Oh gosh, I don't know, because mine needs such a refresh. I don't know what the right thing is to do right now. I think first impression, I think obviously your homepage, your navigation, your ease of navigation, and you should start with it, looking at it on mobile. Make sure, start there and move out, because that's the way most people are looking at it.
Okay.
I've gone with a model where I've got less scrolling, vertical scrolling now, where I've tried to get my main points in that I want. But I think that for me, it's aesthetically how navigable, how good is it at getting them what they come for. The average user that's coming there is looking at properties looking for homes. So how easy is it for them to get that? Do they see someone they jump on? That's important to me. Okay. Now, for me, on the otherwise, I'm big on my marketing, where I drive a lot of people to my website. So I want to make sure we've got the home value, we've got the instant offer, we've got all those things on there. But I think having houses there is super important. And you go to a lot of websites and it's all about the agent, and I get it, but most people go there to find a house if they're just landing on your site.
What do you think, Joe?
Spot on. I would completely agree with that. Like both, and I mean, frankly, like a lot of people don't really care about the content. You're right too. They're there for the listings. They're there to shop for homes. So we kind of touched on this earlier, but if in a low inventory market, you've got to really pay attention to what Buddy just alluded to. User experience, navigation. How easy is it for me to get from one section of the website to another section? And if you start to evaluate that and kind of fine tune that a little bit, you're going to see a lot of positive results.
Well, I was going to also say, I used to go for a world like featured listings and all this. I used to put our listings first, and that they're important. But then I'm like, okay, if the average buyer, and my wife looks at real estate websites, and so what I said is, what does everybody want on a real estate website? They want to see the newest listings. Kind of like when you go in a video store, you want to see the new listings. You don't care about what else is out there. We've had really good results with people now, because we've just got all the new listings that hit the market in the last 2 to 3 days, front and center on our website, whether they're our listing or not. And people resonate with that, because that's what they want. They don't want just your listings, especially when the average agent only has a handful of listings at best.
And especially if they've been searching for a long time, if they've been on the hunt for a new house for 6 months to a year, they've already seen a lot of the active inventory that's been around or sitting on the market. So yeah, like new listings is a big deal. And that's probably why you see most websites populate new listings first for whatever landing page you land on first.
Yeah, and that makes sense. That's very interesting. All right. So Joe, what would you recommend? What piece of advice would you give to someone who's ready to take the next steps? I mean, obviously beyond watching this mastermind, they're wanting to take the next steps with SEO. For example, any blog posts or books or people, what would you, time spent, where should they go? What should they do?
Strategize and plan ahead. Like, we touched on it before, like have a plan. Like, don't think about where you want your website to be in 3 weeks. Like, think about where you want it to be in 3 years. So, have a plan in place. If you are going to outsource, SEO work, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, there's a lot of bad help out there. And I would highly recommend asking whoever you're thinking about hiring, don't be afraid to ask them, like, hey, like, what results have you gotten? What have you done for this website? And then also do your own research. Like, don't just take their word for it. If they give you examples of results that they've seen with other websites, go online, Google, do some test searches, see where that website that they're talking about is ranking, see how it's ranking. And if you like what you see, then they're probably someone that, you want to align yourself with. or vice versa. If you don't see anything good, then probably run the other direction.
Buddy, what would you recommend to somebody who's wanting to get started?
I think that I would reach out to somebody, I mean, like Joe, and ask, like he said, you ask a lot of questions, and you know, what you want to do is be careful from my experience and make sure you don't just hire somebody that's going to throw a template down on you that works, because what works in Tampa or works in Arizona may or may not work in Wilmington, because we're all different, unique areas. So I love the way Joe is talking about, you know, he's talking very intimately, a lot of customizations and kind of unique to the agent and to the area. But I don't like when somebody says, oh yeah, I'll have you up and running in 24 hours. You know, be careful with that stuff, because it's a very, very long game, but it's an investment over the long haul. And as somebody that's been doing it for a very long time, you know, it's hard to see it when you first do it because it's not inexpensive.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're looking back and you can see the results of it, and you can see, you know, the results, it is really nice, and you feel really accomplished, but it really doesn't feel like you're making a good investment at the front end of it. It doesn't always feel that way, because you're like, what is this doing? But it really does make a difference. But it is a 2-3+ year endeavor, I think. And it's not just to get new leads, it's also to help reinvigorate your other people, because the overall content you're creating and the look and the feel and structure, you know, it defines who you are with these people. It's what they remember a lot of times before they pick up the phone and call you, because these people will stalk you for months and years before you actually ever talk to them.
They're stalking you.
Buddy, what's the longest, what's the longest a lead has been on a website that it took for you to convert that lead? Do you know off the top?
Good question.
All right, we came in. Well, I can only tell you this. The last one we were with was Boomtown. We imported, I think, in 2016. Mm-hmm. So the lead source is, 2016, is imported, and it's also 2016 when it came in. We have gotten we've gotten dozens of listings out of that. So, it's still happening.
Yeah.
Recently, every time we kind of re-engage with these people, whether it's a third-party system or whatever, especially on the listing side, we're getting from the old free house values and all this stuff 5 years ago, we're getting listings from the stuff that went into our system 5 years ago, when everybody said, oh, that money was wasted money. Well, it was, right, if you looked at it then. Like, I'll give you an example, Joe. What do you consider when somebody says, what's your conversion rate? Okay, as far as leads, my next question is always, over what time span? Right.
Because a lead you generate today, that could convert next month, it could convert 6 months from now, or it could convert 5 years from now. You just don't know. So yeah, it's a good question.
If I was only going to be in business for 1 year, it would matter 1 year. But until I'm taken off this earth, I'm going to be working. So I need leads 7 years from now.
Right.
Yeah. And we've definitely focused here, or we've spoken to the need to think long term. Okay, let me just run through some quick comments. Brady mentioned keyword research is imperative. Also, that he uses Medium and other software to help with distribution of the Google Juice. Back to my site.
Yeah, I'll speak to that real quick.
Yeah.
The keyword research, I think it's not as comprehensive as you need it to be. I think, your MLS and what your IDX data is already giving you, those are the keywords you need to focus on, at least right away, right? So I think a lot of the keyword research for real estate specifically is done for you, and it's based on, what your MLS allows you to create landing pages for. So I would recommend just paying attention to your IDX feed and seeing what you're able to do with that when it comes to keyword research.
And even though this is a mastermind for everybody, the reality is I've got Sierra Interactive here, and in the background it says Joe and Buddy. I know there's some questions here around features, commingling. Helen says she would like consultation to set up metadata, all those fields, et cetera, et cetera. Would love for you, if you are a Sierra Interactive client, to message our team, support@sierrainteractive.com, and ask about our training and education, and our team, how our team can help you with some of these things. We'd love to talk with you. Trey asked Joe what company you with, and Joe, we've mentioned it, but you can find Joe at realestatewebcreation.com. So check him out if you are curious. Ted says he needs to give Joe the credit on his Chicago and Florida sites success. So kudos to you, Joe, on that. Brady says, I think it's important that the site owner acknowledges who the lead is they are trying to capture. Focus on long tail keywords that are deeper in the funnel, which are typically closer to purchasing because they are focusing on neighborhoods or streets. Maybe that speaks a little bit to your point, Joe, earlier about Googling to see if anybody's written about historic homes in your area. You know, that's a little bit more what you call long tail. Like it's out there a little bit further, which means potentially if anybody finds that, they're going to be higher intent for that exact type of thing. David says fast load in terms of focusing your site, fast load on the homepage and show them the homes. To your point, buddy, you didn't mention, I don't think, the fast load, but definitely making sure, especially on mobile, that it's looking good. And on phones, fast load is easy to use, he said. All right. Well, and let me see. I think we've got maybe, technical question. Feel free to, and Mr. Anonymous or Miss Anonymous, Mrs. Anonymous, whoever anonymous, send it to support@SierraInteractive.com. Scott says, if Joe had a magic wand and could get an SEO-based feature implemented into the Sierra Interactive framework, what would it be?
Ooh, wait, run that by me again real quick. If I had a magic,
well, if you had a magic wand, that's the first point. You know, if you did, and you could get an SEO-based feature implemented. Scott's got daughters. I'm sure there's some magic wands on his television. Get an SEO-based feature implemented into the Sierra Interactive framework. What would it be?
Oh man, I mean, I think that's pretty easy. You guys need to implement a keyword tool so you can create landing pages based on a keyword that's mentioned, like in a listing description. All the portals have them at this point. Zillow, Redfin, Trulia. So that basically allows you to start, optimizing landing pages or create searches for MLS fields that, or I guess not MLS fields, like for keywords that aren't part of your MLS. So I think if you can use that to your advantage, it's kind of a game changer.
Well, listen, this has been a wonderful mastermind. Lots of engagement. Would love to see it. So fantastic. And that's really a testament, I think, to the topic and to you all, Buddy and Joe. Thank you for being here today. Listen, if you're watching live or in the future and you found this time helpful and good for your business, please keep joining us and invite your friends. So the next one, sign up. Anytime you sign up for any of these, we'll go ahead and message you about upcoming ones. And we want your feedback. So send your feedback to hello@SierraInteractive.com. Let us know what you want to mastermind about. We're planning out our next sessions. And so we definitely want to hear what you want to know about. Any last words, Joe, Buddy, that you want to leave?
No, I just, thanks for having me, man. You brought me out of my comfort zone a little bit here. I don't do a lot of these, but it was a good experience, and I'm happy that you guys let me contribute.
Well, we're grateful for you, Joe. Thanks for doing it. Cindy says the same. Cindy, our friend Cindy Allen in Texas, says, thanks, Joe, Robert, and Buddy. I appreciate your time. Buddy, any last words for you?
No, it was super nice meeting Joe and just listening in. He obviously knows what he's doing. And, if you want to go down that road, and I don't know Joe, I met him today. I don't work for Joe. Call him because I sense he would be a resource whether you hired him or not.
Fair enough. I appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for joining.
See you guys.